Bim Roma El, Benatnu Yedidim Zemirot Beshirot Beshishpachot Barachot Behodaot Lemelech El Chai V'Kayam. Ram Venisa Gadol Venora Mash Pilgei Mumagbia Shefalim Motzi Asiri Mufoda Anavim Viozer Dalim Vioneliamo Bi'et Shavamei Love Tehilot Le'el Elyon Tehilot Le'el Elyon Baruch Hu Umavorach Moshe Miriam Ubnei Yisrael Moshe Umiriam Ubnei Yisrael Lecha Anu Shira B'Simcha Rabba V'Amru Kulam Mi Chamocha Ba'elim Adonai Mi Chamocha Nedar B'Kodesh Nora Tehilot Osei Feleh Shira Harasha Shibhu B'Ulim L'Shimcha Sfatayam Yachad Kulam Hodu V'Himlichu V'Yamruhu Adonai Yimloch Leolam Vo'ed Tzur Yisrael Kuma B'Ezrat Yisrael Ufdei Chinemecha Yehuda V'Yisrael Go Aleinu Adonai Tzvaot Shemo Kadosh Yisrael Baruch Ata Adonai Ga'al Yisrael. Amidah on page 159. Baruch Ata Adonai Eloheinu Ve'Elohei Avotenu V'Imotenu Elohei Abraham Elohei Yitzchak Ve'Elohei Yaakov Elohei Sarah Elohei Rivka Elohei Rachel Ve'Elohei Leah Ha'el Hagadol Hagibor V'Hanora El Elyon Gomel Chasadim Tovim V'Konei HaKol V'Zocher Chastei Avot V'Imahot Umevi Goel Livnei V'Nehem Leman Shemo B'Ahava Melech Ozer Umoshia Umagen Baruch Ata Adonai Magen Abraham Ufoked Sarah Ata Gibor Leolam Adonai Mechaye Metim Torah Lehoshia Mashiv Haruach Umorid Hagashem Mechakel Chaim B'Chesed Mechaye Metim B'Rachamim Rabim Samech Noflim V'Rofei Cholim Umatir Asurim Umekayim Emunato Lishenei Afar Nipamocha Baal Gevurot Umido Melach Melech Memit Umechayeh Umatzmiach Yeshua V'ne'eman Ata L'Hachayot Meitim Baruch Ata Adonai Mechayeh HaMeitim.
שמך בעולם כשם שמעתי שמות בשמרום, ככתוב על יד נביאך בקרא זה, אל זה בימה.
נקדש את שמך בעולם כשם שמקדישים אותו בשמי מרום, ככתוב על יד נביאך וקרא זה אל זה ויאמר.
קדוש 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 אדוני צבאות מלוך על הארץ כבודו. אז בקול רעש גדול אדיר וחזק משמיעים קול, ונעשים למצרפים ומעתם ברוך יאמרו.
קדוש 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 אדוני צבאות מלוך על הארץ כבודו. אז בקול רעש גדול אדיר וחזק משמיעים קול, מתנשאים למצרפים ומעתם ברוך יאמרו.
כבוד אדוני ממקומו, ממקומך מלכנו תופיע, ותמלוך עלינו כי מכרחים אנחנו לך, מתי תמלוך בציון, וקרוב בימינו לעולם בעת תשכון, תתגדל ותקדש בתוך ירושלים עירך, לדור ודור ולנצח נצחים.
ברוך כבוד אדוני ממקומו, ממקומך מלכנו תופיע, ותמלוך עלינו כי מחכים אנחנו לך, Matai timloch b'tzion, b'karov b'yomenu li'olam v'hed tishkon, titkadal v'titkadash b'toch Yerushalayim ircha, l'dor v'dor u'lenetzach netzachim, v'einenu tirena malchutecha, kadavar hamur b'shirei uzecha al yedei David Mashiach tzidkecha.
Adonai le'olam Elohayich Tzion, l'dor v'dor, hallelujah.
Yimloch Adonai le'olam Elohayich Zion l'dor v'dor, hallelujah. L'dor v'dor nagi gadlecha u'lenetzach netzachim kedushatcha nakdish. V'shivchacha Eloheinu mipinu lo yamush le'olam va'ed. Ki el melech gadol v'kadosh ata. Baruch ata Adonai. Ha'el ha'kadosh. Kaddish Shalem is on page 167. Yitkadal v'yitkadash shemei Rabbah. Yomadi brachi rutei v'yamlich malchutei b'chayeichon u'v'yomeichon u'v'chayei d'chol beit Yisrael ba'agala u'v'zman kariv v'himaru. Amen. Heshmei Rabbah mevorah v'olam olam me'omaya. Yitbarach, Yishtabach, Yitbar, Yitramam, Yitnaseh, Yitadar, Yitaleh, Yitalal, Shemei Dekudesho, Brichu, La'ela, Min Kol Birchata, V'shirata, Tushbechata, V'nechamata, Damiran Bialma, V'himru, Amen. Tikabel Tzalaton Uvoton L'chol Yisrael Kadam Ovohon Divishmaya V'imru, Amen. Yehi Shlama Rabba Min Shemaya V'chayim Aleinu V'el Kol Yisrael V'imru, Amen. Oseh Shalom B'imromav Hu Yaseh Shalom Aleinu V'el Kol Yisrael V'imru, Amen.
Yashkoach. Shabbat Shalom, everybody. I know no one recognizes me. So.
Shabbat Shalom, Rabbi.
Right, you're in a different room and you have a shorter beard.
Right. Yeah, they decided to change everything. So now, yeah.
He looked a little younger. That's little Jimmy Morgan, I think.
Exactly. The beard is just as gray, but less. There's less of it. So, I think the beard. You don't see me. All you see is the beard. So it's not a bad thing necessarily. But all right. So good Shabbos. Who's joined us since? So it looks like we have. Here we have Judy has joined us. Hello, Judy. And Ruth joined us, and Harvey and Susan, and Sherry and Jim. That's everyone, and I think Lori had joined us before Shacharit, so that's great.
Right, Sherry was a little late this morning.
Don't forget Elaine's with Harvey.
Hello. So it's great. And so Yasher Koach to Norma and to Norman for David. Thank you. Then we will now.
Yes, sit forward a little bit.
No, I can't because of the light.
Okay, good. All right. No problem.
I mean, it's better.
Yeah.
All right. So we'll proceed now with the Torah reading. So Susan, are you up for being the English reader?
Sure.
Great. All right. Just give me a moment to pull it up here. It doesn't look very good. Hold on.
Are we reading Vayishlach?
Vayishlach, exactly. It begins on, let's see, it begins on chapter 34. Not too far. 34, verse 1. All right, 34 verse 1, and the first aliyah is 34 verses 1 through 4. And so we will let me put my talis back on, and we will read and we will recite the blessing for Torah study all together. Baruch atah Adonai Elohim asher kitshan b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu la'asok b'divrei Torah. ותצא דינה בת לאה אשר ילדה ליעקב לראות בבנות הארץ. וירא אותה שכם בן חמור אחי נשיא הארץ, ויקח אותה וישכב אותה וינאה. ותדבק נפשו בדינה בת יעקב, ויאהב את הנערה וידבר על לב הנערה. ויאמר שכם אל חמור אביו לאמור, קח לי את הילדה הזאת לאישה.
Now Dinah, the daughter whom Leah had borne to Jacob, went out to visit the daughters of the land. Shechem, son of Hamor the Hivite, chief of the country, saw her and took her and lay with her by force. Being strongly drawn to Dinah, daughter of Jacob, and in love with the maiden, he spoke to the maiden tenderly. So Shechem said to his father Hamor, "Get me this girl as a wife."
Okay, the next aliyah is verses 5 through 12. V'Yaakov shama ki time et Dinah vito, uvanav hayu et miknehu basadem, v'hecherish Yaakov ad Boam, vayetze Hamor abi Shechem el Yaakov ledaber ito, uvnei Yaakov ba'u min hasadeh kshom'aham, vayit'atzvu ha'anashim. Vayichar lahem me'od, ki nivala asab v'Yisrael, lishkav et bat Yaakov v'chen lo ye'aseh, vadaber Hamor itam lemor, Shechem beni Hashekah nafsho bevitechem tenu naota lo leisha, vehit chatenu otanu, benotechem titenu lanu, viet benotenu tikechu lachem. V'itanu teshevu, v'charetz tichiyeh lifnechem, shevu uscharuha, v'he'achazuhu baha. Vayomer Shechem el aviha v'el acheha, emtzachen be'inechem, Ba'asher tumeru elai eten. Harabu alai me'od mohar umatan ve'etna ka'asher tumeru elai utanu li et utanu li
Jacob heard that he had defiled his daughter Dinah, but since his sons were in the field with his cattle, Jacob kept silent until they all came home. Then Shechem's father Hamor came out to Jacob to speak to him. Meanwhile, Jacob's sons, having heard the news, came in from the field. The men were distressed and very angry because he had committed an outrage in Israel by lying with Jacob's daughter, a thing not to be done. And Hamor spoke with them, saying, "My son Shechem longs for your daughter. Please give her to him in marriage. Intermarry with us. Give your daughters to us and take our daughters for yourselves. You will dwell among us, and the land will be open before you. Settle, move about, and acquire holdings in it." Then Shechem said to her father and brothers, "Do me this favor, and I will pay whatever you tell me. Ask of me a bride price ever so high, as well as gifts, and I will pay what you tell me. Only give me the maiden for a wife."
Okay, the next Aliyah is verses 13 through 17. Ve'anu v'nei Yaakov et Shechem v'et Hamor aviv b'mirma v'daberu asher timeh et Dinah achotam vayomeru alehem lo nuchal la'asot hadavar hazeh latet et achotenu leish asher lo orla ki cherpa hi lanu ach bezot neot lachem im tichyu chamonu lehimo lachem kol zachar v'natanu et benotenu lachem v'et benotechem nikach lanu v'yashavnu itechem v'hayinu le'amechad v'im lo tishma'u elenu lehimol v'lakachnu et bitenu v'halachnu.
Jacob's sons answered Shechem and his father Hamor, speaking with guile because he had defiled their sister Dinah, and said to them, "We cannot do this thing, to give our sister to a man who is uncircumcised, for that is a disgrace among us. Only on this condition will we agree with you, that you will become like us, in that every male among you is circumcised. Then we will give you our daughters to you, and take your daughters to ourselves, and we will dwell among you and become as one kindred. But if you will not listen to us and become circumcised, we will take our daughter and go."
Next Aliyah is verses 18 through 23. Vayitevu divrehem b'einei Hamor uv'einei Shechem ben Hamor v'lo echar hana'ar la'asot hadavar ki chafetz b'vat Yaakov v'hu nichbad mikol beit aviv. Vayavo Hamor u'Shechem beno el sha'ar Iram vaydaberu el anshe Iram lemor ha'anashim ha'ele shlemim hem itanu vayishvu va'aretz Vayizcharu otah v'haaretz hinei rachavat yadayim lifneihem את בנותם ניקח לנו לנשים, ואת בנותינו ניתן להם. אך בזאת יאותו לנו האנשים לשבת איתנו, לחיות לעם אחד. והימו לנו כל זכר כאשר הם נימולים מקניהם וקניינם וכל בהמתם. הלא לנו הם, אך נאותם להם, וישבו איתנו. Susan, you're still...
Yeah. Their words pleased Hamor and Hamor's son Shem, and the youth lost no time in doing the thing, for he wanted Jacob's daughter. Now he was the most respected in his father's house. So Hamor and his son Shem went to the public place of their town and spoke to their fellow townsmen, saying, "These people are our friends. Let them settle in the land and move about in it, for the land is large enough for them. We will take their daughters to ourselves as wives and give our daughters to them. But only on this condition will the men agree with us to dwell among us and be as one kindred, that all our males become circumcised as they are circumcised. Their cattle and substance and all their beasts will be ours, if we only agree to their terms, so that they will settle among us."
The next aliyah is verses 24 through 31. V'yehi vayom hashlishi bihiotam ko'avim vayikechu shnei bnei Yaakov Shimon v'Levi אחי דינה איש חרבו, ויבואו על העיר בטח, ויהרגו כל זכר, ואת חמור ואת שכם בנו הרגו לפי חרב. ויקחו את דינה מבית שכם ויצאו בני יעקב, באו על החללים ויבוזו העיר אשר טימאו אחותם, ואת צאנם ואת בקרם ואת חמוריהם, ואת אשר בעיר ואת אשר בשדה לקחו, ואת כל חילם ואת כל טפם ואת נשיהם שבו ויבוזו, ואת כל אשר בבית. ויאמר יעקב אל שמעון ואל לוי, אחרתם אותי להבאישני ביושב הארץ, בכנעני ובפריזי, ואני מתי מספר, ונאספו עלי, והיכוני ונשמדתי אני וביתי, ויאמרו החזונה יעשה את אחותינו.
All who went out of the gate of his town heeded Hamor and his son Shechem, and all males, all those who went out of the gate of his town were circumcised. On the third day, when they were in pain, Shimon and Levi, two of Jacob's sons, brothers of Dinah, took each his sword, came upon the city unmolested, and slew all the males. They put Hamor and his son Shechem to the sword, took Dinah out of Shechem's house, and went away. The other sons of Jacob came upon the slain and plundered the town because their sister had been defiled. They seized their flocks and herds and asses, all that was inside the town and outside, all their wealth, all their children and their wives, all that was in the houses they took as captives and booty. Jacob said to Shimon and Levi, "You have brought trouble on me, making me odious among the inhabitants of the land, the Canaanites and the Perizzites. My men are few in number, so that if they unite against me and attack me, I and my house will be destroyed." But they answered, "Should our sister be treated like a whore?"
I realized that I forgot to read verse 24, so I'll just read that one in Hebrew, and then we will continue with the next aliyah, which is verses 1 through 11 of chapter 35. Vayishme'uhu et Hamor v'et Shechem beno kol yotzei sha'ar iro vayimolu kol zachar kol yotzei sha'ar iro. Okay, so that was verse 24. Now we will turn to chapter 35, verse 1, as I said, between verse 1 and 11. Vayomer Elohim et Yaakov kum alei vet el v'shev sham ba'asei sham mizbeach la'el hanir'eh elecha bivarechacha mipnei esav achicha vayomer Yaakov et beito ve'el kol asher imo hasiru et Elohei hanechar asher bitochechem v'hitaharu v'hachalifu simlotechem v'nakuma v'na'ale beit el ve'ese sham mizbeach la'el ha'oneh oti biyom tzarati vayahi imadi baderech asher halachti vayitenu el Yaakov et kol Elohei hanechar asher biyadam v'et hanizamim asher be'oznehem vayitmohon otam Yaakov tachat ha'elah asher im Shechem vayisa'u vayehi pitat Elohim al ha'arim asher sevivotehem v'lo radifu acharei bnei Yaakov vayavo Yaakov luza asher be'eretz Canaan hi beit el hu v'chol ha'am asher imo vayiven sham mizbeach vayikra lamakom el beit el ki sham Nigla elav ha'elohim bivarecho mipnei achiv. Vatahamot dvorah meneket Rivka vatikave מתחת לבית אל תחת העלון, ויקרא שמו אלון בחוט. וירא אלוהים אל יעקב עוד בבואו מפדן ארם, ויברך אותו, ויאמר לו אלוהים, שמך יעקב, לא יקרא שמך עוד יעקב, כי אם ישראל יחיה שמך, ויקרא את שמו ישראל, ויאמר לו אלוהים, אני אל שדי פרא ורבה, גוי וקהל גויים יהיה ממך, ומלכים מחלציך יצאו. Oops, sorry.
Oh, you had it. Oh. God said to Jacob, arise, go up to Bethel and remain there, and build an altar there to the God who appeared to you when you were fleeing from your brother Esau. So Jacob said to his household and to all who were with him, rid yourselves of the alien gods in your midst. Purify yourselves and change your clothes. Come, let us go up to Bethel, and I will build an altar there to the God who answered me when I was in distress and who has been with me wherever I have gone. They gave to Jacob all the alien gods that they had and the rings that were in their ears, and Jacob buried them under the terebinth that was near Shechem. As they set out, a terror from God fell on the cities round about, so that they did not pursue the sons of Jacob. Thus Jacob came to Luz, that is Bethel, in the land of Canaan, he and all the people who were with him. There he built an altar and named the site El Bethel, for it was there that God had revealed himself to him when he was fleeing from his brother. Devorah, Rebekah's nurse, died and was buried under the oak below Bethel, so it was named Alon Bakut. God appeared again to Jacob on his arrival from Padam Aram, and he blessed him. God said to him, you whose name is Jacob, you shall be called Jacob no more, but Yisrael shall be your name. Thus he named him Yisrael. And God said to him, I am El Shaddai, be fertile and increase. A nation, yea, an assembly of nations shall descend from you. Kings shall issue from your loins.
All right, now the final Aliyah is chapter 35, verses 12 through 15. V'et ha'aretz asher natati la'Abraham u'Yitzchak lecha etnenu u'zarecha acharecha eten et ha'aretz vaya'al me'alav Elohim b'makom asher diber ito ויצב יעקב מצבה במקום אשר דיבר איתו מצבת אבן ויסך עליה נסך ויצוך aleha shamen. Vayikra Yaakov et Shem hamakom asher diber ito sham Elohim bet El.
The land that I assigned to Abraham and Isaac, I assign to you, and to your offspring to come will I assign the land. God parted from him at the spot where he had spoken to him. And Jacob set up a pillar at the site where he had spoken to him, a pillar of stone, and he offered a libation on it and poured oil upon it. Jacob gave the site where God had spoken to him the name of Bethel.
All right. Seconds.
Can I ask a quick question?
Please.
So do the tropes mean anything in terms of the substance of what we're reading?
That's a good question for Norman, but I don't think he's here anymore.
Okay.
Go ahead, Miriam. You're muted.
I guess it wasn't a quick question.
Norman's opinion is that they do not.
Okay.
I differ with Norman's opinion. Not in every case, but I think that there are many places where the at least from my experience of learning, that there are certain places where there's heightened the use of certain tropes is rare, and so sometimes that seems to signal some sort of significance, but I wouldn't want to make any kind of scholarly argument about that.
Well, the Shacharit.
But the trope follows the syntax of the Hebrew.
Right.
Oh,
Right.
the syntax, the grouping of the verses definitely can have meaning, but I should let him speak for himself.
Yeah.
But in general, my understanding from prior conversations is that he didn't think it usually had
Well,
significance.
the Shacharit appears in a few places, and it seems to have a very important meaning, but that's really unusual.
That's a very rare one. Exactly. So obviously, as with many quick Jewish questions, we could spend a whole day. So, all right. So at this point, but I am interested, Susan, to know if there was a particular moment in this reading that prompted that question.
Well, it's just every now and then one of the more unusual tropes
Yes.
would appear.
Right.
A lot of it is just your bread and butter tropes.
Right.
But then particularly towards the end, I think there were some of the unusual ones that I don't know.
It always seems to me that when there's a choice before the one that's a beer, the da 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 da, that there's the ones that you can just go ba ba da, or instead you could go ba ba da da da, and somehow it always seems to me that there's the potential that if you choose the fancier one, if the tradition chooses the fancier one, that there's somehow that's being pointed at. But again, I'm not an expert. All right, so we will turn now to the Mishaberach, and I'll invite everyone who has people that they would like to mention for healing to unmute themselves, and I will call on you one by one, and that'll be great. So we'll start with Anne.
Blaine Israel and Helen Metz.
Great. Petra and Lauren.
Ruth Bat Sarah.
Ellen.
Oh, Anna and Helen and Pat.
Miriam.
Nikki Kermish, Ben Rubak, Bat Hayedel, Amy Bat Rivka.
Mark.
Ronit Bat Miriam the Aharon and Bob Manukin.
Sherry.
Ruth Batsara.
Jim.
Thomas J. Largy and Tanya Largy.
Susan Brand.
Sarah Brand, Elizabeth Brand, Judy Turner, Jennifer Chung, Kathy Welsh, and Maureen Tedesco.
Judy?
Coco, Yomi Lazel, Faye Kravitz, Nettie Goldman.
Harriet?
Richard Ford, Paul Flicker, Norman Newberg, Inge de Wilde, Sarah Ward.
Norma?
Esther Wilner.
Adina, just but in case you didn't notice, Adina, you're on your side. I don't know if you knew that.
Oh, okay. Is that better? I don't usually use my iPad. Okay. Gaby Schlesinger, Yona Bat Miriam David, Ziva Garbi.
Ruth?
Sora Bathana.
Susan Cohen?
Mary Kellerman, Gail Weisberg.
And Marcia, did you want to mention someone? Okay, I'll take that as a no. I'll say Louise Snyder, Tamar Bat Miriam, and Rachel. Okay. Did I miss anyone? Okay. So we will turn now to the Misha Berach. I'll put it up on the screen. Huh. I apologize. I don't know why we're so.
Page 173.
Right. Okay. Mishebera avote Mikor bracha lehimotenu. May the source of strength, who bless the ones before us, help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say, Amen. Misheberach imotenu mekor bracha liavotenu. Bless those in need of healing with refuah shelema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say, Amen. All right, so Sandy, you just came on. Would you like to share some names? You're muted right now, Sandy.
The answer is, of course.
Thank you.
I'd like to make some.
Please do.
Okay. Ellen Zuniga, David Engel, Alvin Glazerman, Yair Alroy, Rosemarie Alroy.
Thank you, Sandy.
Thank you.
Great. All right. So, Mark, are you up for the Amidah? I mean, Amidah, the Haftarah? Yeah. Okay. The Haftarah you'll do, but the Amidah has already been done.
It's already been done.
Great. All right. So I'm gonna take a moment to find it. The blessings are on page 174. If you have a book.
Yep.
I'm not going to put the blessings on the screen. I'm just going to put up the. Just the text. But give me one moment. This is Ovadia, verses 1 through 21. It is found, if you have an Eitz Chaim in front of you, it is page 222.
Okay. Do you want me to say the blessing then?
Yeah, please do.
Okay. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher bachar b'neviim tovim v'ratza v'divreihem hanemarim be'emet. Baruch atah Adonai abocher b'Torah u'b'Moshe avdo u'v'Yisrael amo u'v'nbiei ha'emet v'tzedek. Chazon Ovadia Ko amar Adonai Elohim ledom. Shmua shamanu me'et Adonai v'tzir bagoyim. Bagoyim shulach kumu. V'nakuma aleha lemilchama. Hine katon netaticha bagoyim. Bezoyata me'od, zadon libcha hashiecha, shochnei bechegzei sela merom shivto, omer b'libo mi yorideni aretz, im tagbia kanesher, ve'im bein kochavim, simkinecha, Misham Oriedcha Ne'um Adonai Im Ganavim Ba'ulecha Im Shodei Laila Ech Nidmeta Halo Yignevu Dayam Im Potzrim Ba'ulach Halo Yashiru Olelot Enechveshu Esav Niv'u Matzpunav Ad Hagvul Shilchucha Kol Anshe Britecha Hishiucha Yachlu Lecha Anshe Shlomecha Lechamacha Yasimu Mazor Tachtecha Ein tevuna bo halo bayom hahu ne'um Adonai v'ha'avadati hachamim me'edom utvuna mehar Esav v'chatu giborecha teiman leman yikaret eish mehar Esav Mikatel Mechamas Achicha Yaakov Tachasecha Busha Venichrata Leolam Bayom Amadcha Mineged Bayom Shvot Zarim Chelo Vanachrim Ba'u Sa'ara V'Yerushalayim Yadu Gorahal Gam Ata Ke'echad Mehem V'im Tere V'yom Achicha V'yom Nachruhu V'al Tismach Livnei Yehuda V'yom Avdam Ve'al tegadel picha beyom tzara al tavo basar ami beyom edam al tere gamata bera'ato beyom edo ve'al tishlachna bechelo beyom edo ve'ta'amod al haperek Lehachrit et plitav ve'al tasger sridav beyom tzara ki karov yom Adonai al kol hagoyim ka'asher asita ya'aseh lach gemulcha yashuv broshecha כי כאשר שתיתם על הר קודשי, ישתו כל הגויים תמיד, ושתו ולאו, היו כלא היו, ובהר ציון תהיה פליטה, והיה קודש, וירשו בית יעקב את מורשיהם, והיה בית יעקב אש, ובית יוסף להבה, ובין עשיו לקש, ודלקו בהם ואכלום, ולא יהיה שריד לבית עשיו, כי אדוני דיבר. וירשו הנגב את הר עשיו, והשפלה את פלישתים, וירשו את שדה אפרים, ואת שדה שומרון, ובנימין את הגלעד. וגלות החל הזה לבני ישראל אשר כנענים עד צרפת, וגלות ירושלים אשר בספרד. ירשו את ערי הנגב, ועלו מושיעים בהר ציון, לשפוט את הר עשיו, והייתה לאדוני המלוכה. ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם, צור כל עולמים, צדיק בכל הדורות, האל הנאמן, האומר ועושה, המדבר ומקיים, שכל דבריו אמת וצדק. נאמן אתה הוא אדוני אלוהינו, ונאמנים דבריך, ודבר אחד מדבריך, אחור לא ישוב ריקם. כי המלך נאמן ורחמן אתה, ברוך אתה אדוני, האל הנאמן בכל דבריו. רחם על ציון כי בית חיינו, ולעלובת נפש תושיע במהרה בימינו. ברוך אתה אדוני, משמח ציון דבניה. שמחנו אדוני אלוהינו באליהו הנביא עבדך, ובמלכות בית דוד משיחך. במהרה יבוא ויגל ליבנו, על כיסו לא ישב זר, ולא ינחלו עוד אחרים את כבודו. כי בשם קודשך נשבעת לו, שלא יכבה נרו לעולם ועד. ברוך אתה אדוני, מגן דוד. על התורה ועל עבודה ועל הנביאים ועל יום השבת הזה, שנתת לנו אדוני אלוהינו, לקדושה ולמנוחה, לכבוד ולתפארת. על הכל אדוני אלוהינו אנחנו מודים לך, ומברכים אותך. יתברך שמך בפי כל חי, תמיד לעולם ועד. ברוך אתה אדוני, מקדש השבת.
Amen. Yasher Koach. All right. So we have a few moments, I think. So if people have, we can go back to the discussion we were having before, or if other people have comments about today's Torah portion they would like to offer. The floor is open.
Jim, I'd like to call people's attention to something.
Please.
Which is that every week Jonah does a podcast, and it's on the Parashat HaShavua, and he usually has one scholar and one student and moderates a discussion. This week, and you can just go on the Hillel website, this week it was just a fascinating discussion that I recommend that you listen to. He had Diane Rosenfeld, the head of the Gender Violence Program at Harvard Law School, and Rebecca Ayrton, who's the leader of the Undergraduate Student Steering Committee at Harvard Hillel, to talk about the biblical narrative of the rape of Dinah and how it echoes in the present day. And it was a really high level, interesting discussion. These aren't very, they're not really, all that long, the podcast, but I particularly recommend that.
Thank you, Mark.
Is that on the Hillel website, Mark?
Yeah, it's on the Hillel website, and it's just, there's something, it says, online speaker series, and then there's something that says podcast, and it has actually all of the paras showed up until now, different speakers. We had, on dreams, we had Dr. Robert Stickgold, who studies the nature and function of sleep and dreams from a cognitive neuroscience perspective. And they talked about that parasha. So it's pretty interesting. This week's was very, because it's such a difficult parasha.
Thank you, Mark. Jim.
From a different perspective, but on the same passage, I read an essay written by Meir Sternberg, who looks at biblical passages from the standpoint of literary analysis. And he points out that there is a lot in the story as it's presented to us to provide explanation and sort of sympathy for the fact that the brothers did this awful thing, even though it's something that Jacob is clearly very angry about and is is clearly repugnant. It's depicted as a behavior characterized by mirma, deceit, which of course we pray that we shouldn't experience. We should be guarded, our tongue and our lips should be guarded from mirma. But there is a lot in the passageway. First of all, here we have Jacob, who is incredibly active in arranging things. All the stories that we've read up until now, including the reunion with Esau. And when this event happens, he does absolutely nothing. And it's true, the story says that the sons are out shearing the sheep somewhere, and they can't be, they're just far away, and he's pretty much by himself. But he doesn't even say, it doesn't even say that he sent a messenger to them. So all of a sudden, he's incredibly passive in this story, creating a vacuum for his sons to rise up and act when they come back. So that's one thing. Second of all, there's a lot of editorializing in the story about Shechem's deed, that it's something that simply isn't done, that it's a defilement. There's all that. And finally, the sons get the very last word in the story. Oh, wait a minute. Should our sister be treated as a whore? So it's very interesting how the story is constructed in such a way as to provide as much justification as could be extracted from its grim and grisly details for the brothers' deed. And also we should keep in mind that during all this nice conversation, Dinah is actually in Shechem's custody. So I just wanted to bring all that up because I thought that was pretty interesting, especially that Jacob, who is so angry about this, that at the end of the book of Genesis, he kind of pronounces a judgment on Shimon and Levi for their actions in this story. Decades later, he's still pronouncing his anger at them for what they've done. And yet he himself was so passive in this situation that he created a space for them to act without his guidance.
Jim, I'm going to let Harriet, do you want to say something?
No.
Oh, okay. All right. Sorry, Jim. I thought Harriet was waiting. But thank you, Jim. Yeah, I found that very interesting as well. The fact that that Jacob is so passive here, and I was reminded of it when I was reading the book at Center Street. Reading the book of Samuel, and when in this similar situation with the rape of Tamar, David suddenly becomes incredibly passive, and that leads essentially to Avshalom taking matters into his own hands and killing the other brother whose name is escaping me at the moment. But that similar sort of evacuation of the paternal response leaves things open for the siblings to do violence. So I thought I saw, yeah, Mikkel, please, and then Elaine.
Okay, now can you hear me? Yeah. I have a question. I mean, women do occasionally speak in the Torah, so I'm curious whether the rabbis comment at all on Dina's silence here. She's not asked and she doesn't speak. And that seems very prominent to me as well. And then in the comment about Jacob leaving room for the sons to act, of course he does, but the sons could have filled that room in various ways. They did not have to only act in this way.
Right.
This is their choice. Father's intervention.
Actually, I do have a comment. Oh,
Well, let's hear from Helene.
go on.
Waiting, and then here you can.
On this very point, and then I have a little factoid to add on another point. On this point, what is interesting is Jacob's reaction to the sons is political and not moral. We have Noahite law. We have the Bible telling us that people should not be killed through the example of Cain and Abel. And all he judges them entirely, and what we would call today security, entirely in the terms of his relations as a nomad with the people whose lands he and his family and beasts and so on inhabit. And it's the brothers who bring him back to the moral point. So this is more than just passive. This is somewhat reneging on his duty as a patriarch. I mean, he knows from his father that they're going to be patriarchs. This is not unknown, and God is about to repeat that. Anyhow, I thought that point speaks to the Sternberg, if that's the right name's literary interpretation. And then the factoid is in the next chapter about Bethel is the first appearance that we know of in at least so-called Western literature of the building of a commemorative monument, not an altar and not a depiction of a god or a tomb, but a matseva. Something is there as a monument or memorial, a reminder. And since this touches on what I do, it's often cited in the architectural historical literature, where it amuses me to see it.
Thank you, Helene. So Harriet, and I see Miriam also wants.
Yes.
So go ahead, Harriet.
Well, I actually have a humorous anecdote from my youth, which seems unlikely for this thing. When I was in high school, I started taking night classes at Gratz College, and Bereshit was the first book we studied in Hebrew. And we had a very straight-laced Israeli teacher. And we, being teenagers, were just waiting till we got to the rape of Dinah, because we wanted to see what our teacher was going to do when he got to that passage. and we just couldn't imagine him, what would he do? So the day came and we all came in waiting to see how he was going to go over it. And he looked up and said, Atem yodim et hasipur hazeh, which means, you know this story. Hala, onward. And we skipped it. And we went on to the next part of the book. So
Perhaps
from
you
all
could
his
call this.
teaching, unfortunately, this is an
Perhaps you could call this
anecdote.
a humorous story.
What?
Perhaps you could call it a humorous story instead of humorous.
Well, I guess so. But I just recall that we were waiting to see how he would deal with it, and then he just skipped it. And we thought he sort of, that wasn't really fair. So that's just one more anecdote.
Thanks, Terry. So I know that Miriam and Ellen want to say something. We're getting very close to time. So if you can keep your comments brief, it would be, I do really want to hear them.
On the question of Dina's silence, I think what you said, Rabbi, at the beginning is the reason for that. She is in the custody of her rapist family.
Yeah.
So Jacob and her brothers have no way of knowing whether she would be willing to be married to him, which is what they are proposing and was apparently customary, or whether she wants to, in all likelihood, live perpetually unmarried, because that's what would probably have happened to her. And they are a minority. There's no such concept of citizenship, but they are living in the territory of this alien tribe that has Dina in tow. And it seems to me Jacob wants to consult his sons because the whole family is in grave danger, and it's just an awful situation with no good solution.
And just to be clear, that was Jim Leffert made that point, not me. Although I definitely agree with it. Marty, we're gonna have to have one more thing. Okay, bye, Ann. Great to see you. All right, so Marty, I'm gonna just let Ellen talk, and then we can continue after.
Thank you. I think that one of the reasons that the rabbis may not tackle this story in the way that would be clear, it seems to me the most passive force is God. Doesn't say anything about the rape, helps Jacob to get out of there, and nobody is censored for bad doings, except those that get killed, and the murders are not censored. So I just am puzzled by that.
It's very puzzling, and the tradition definitely does struggle with this question. Does this punishment fit the crime? Is it itself a crime? And doesn't ever, Dina's never heard from again. So yeah, it's a very troubling passage. All right, so I think we will move on with.
It's Marty.
Marty, after we're finished with our, because I want to let people go if they want to go. So we're going to finish our.
Thank you.
We can get. All right, great. So we will turn back now to our service, and we will let's see. Yismechu b'malchutecha shomrei 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 Shabbat v'korei oneg Shabbat. Yismechu b'malchutecha shomrei 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 Shabbat v'korei oneg Shabbat. Mekadeshe Shavi Shabbat. כולם יזכרו ויתענגו בטובך השבת, ישמחו במלכותך שומרי 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 שבת וקוראי עונג שבת, ישמחו במלכותך שומרי 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 שבת וקוראי עונג שבת. בשביעי רצית בו וקידשתו שבת, חמדת ימים אותו קראת שבת, ישמחו במלכותך שומרי 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 שבת וקוראי עונג שבת, ישמחו במלכותך שומרי 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 שבת וקוראי עונג שבת. זכר למעשה וראשית שבת, זכר למעשה וראשית שבת. Page 201. שים שלום טובה וברכה, חן וחסד ורחמים עלינו ועל כל ישראל, ועל כל ישראל עמך. ברכנו אבינו כולנו כאחד, כולנו כאחד באור פניך. ברכנו אבינו כולנו כאחד, כולנו באחד באור פניך. כי באור פניך נתת לנו אדוני אלוהינו תורת חיים, ותורת חסד וברכה ורחמים בחיים ושלום. וטוב בעיניך לברך את עמך, לברך את עמך ישראל בכל עת ובכל שעה, בכל עת ובכל שעה בשלומך. יאללה לה 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 לה, יאללה לה יאללה לה לה יאללה לה יאללה לה לה, יאללה לה 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 יאללה לה יאללה לה לה, יאללה לה יאללה לה לה, יאללה לה 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 לה, יאללה לה 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 לה, יאללה לה 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 לה, יאללה לה יאללה לה, יאללה יאללה לה, יאללה לה לה לה, יאללה לה 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 לה, yalla la 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 yalla la 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 yalla la ay la 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 la. I invite you to rise as you are able. Page 205 for the Aliyah. Aleinu l'shabeach la'adon hakol, לתת גדולה ליוצא בראשית, שלא עשנו כגויי הארצות, ולא שמנו כמשפחות האדמה, שלא שם חלקנו כהם, וגור עלינו ככל המונם, ואנחנו קוראים ומשתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים, הקדוש ברוך הוא, שהוא נוטה שמיים ויוסד ארץ, ומושב יקרו בשמיים ממעל, ושכינתו זו, בגובה מרומים, הוא אלוהינו אין עוד, אמת מלכנו ופסולתו, ככתוב בתורתו, וידעת היום וישיבות אל לבביך, כי אדוני הוא האלוהים בשמיים ממעל, ועל הארץ מתחת אין עוד. Page 206, על כן נכבד לך אדוני אלוהינו לראות מהירת תפארת וזכר להעביר את זה. ככתוב בתורתך, אדוני ימלוך לעולם ועד, ונאמר, והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ, ביום ההוא, יחיה אדוני אחד, ושמו אחד. So for Mourner's Kaddish, I will invite people to, excuse me one second, there we go. I'll invite people to unmute themselves if there are names you would like to mention. If you are commemorating a yard site or if you are in mourning, please feel free. Adina?
No, I don't. I just unmuted so I could respond.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you. Great. All right. So we will we'll continue with Kadish Yatom. Yikadal v'yikadash shemei Rabbah.
Amen.
Amen.
Yalma divra chirute, yamlich malchute, v'chayechon v'nechon v'chayedechu beit Yisrael. V'agalau v'zman kafri imramen.
Amen.
Amen.
Hey.
Hey, Shmei, Rabba,
Barach,
Shalom,
Shalom, Leomaya.
Barach, v'yishtabach, v'yita'ar, v'yit'romam, v'yitnases. V'yadar, v'yit'aleh, v'yit'alal, shemei dekudsha. V'richu, Le'elam in kol birchata, v'shirata, tushbechata, v'nechemata, v'amiram v'elama, v'imramen.
Amen.
Hey, Shlama Rabba Min Shemaya, v'chaim alenu, v'elko Yisrael, v'imramen.
Amen.
Shalom v'imramav, hu ya'aseh shalom. V'elko Yisrael, v'elko Yisrael tibel, v'imramen.
Amen.
Whoa. Too many things on my. All right. So I think it's time for announcements.
I'm happy to make a few. First of all, our book group is meeting tomorrow at 7:30 following Mariv service. We're going to talk about the novel Homesick by the Israeli novelist Eshkol Nevo. So that's one thing. And of course, our Hanukkah party is coming up a week from Tuesday. I hear there's going to be all kinds of musical stuff happening. And of course, people are sharpening up their rhetoric for the first ever Minyan Latka Hamantash debate. So please be sure to include that on your calendar on the 15th. And then finally on December 27th, which is 3 weeks from tomorrow, we will have our next Shmooze and Learn. Thelma Fenster, a scholar of medieval history, is going to tell us about the Bova book, a novel in Yiddish from the 16th century that was popular for centuries afterward. We're going to hear about it finally. After not learning about it for all these years, we're going to know about this remarkable novel that so captured the imagination of Jewish communities in Europe.
Thank you. Ruth.
Oh, I just wanted to say that Thelma Fenster is a very prominent scholar of French literature.
Great, thank you. I will add also that in addition to the things that Jim has mentioned, on Tuesday, this Tuesday, the 8th, there is going to be a spectacular in the New York Yiddish theater. And so the link for that is in the Minyan Bulletin that I sent around. That is free. And then on Saturday evening, the 12th, the Saturday evening of Hanukkah, there is a Hanukkah party concert by a band called Nefesh Mountain, which is a Jewish-oriented bluegrass band. And they are streaming their concert. And I was in touch with their producer, and we've arranged for people who would like to see that to have a $2 discount. The cost of the concert is $10, but if you type in the code Hillel, you get a $2 discount off the $10, so you only pay $8. They're a great band. You can check them out on YouTube and see if it's something that you think you
My
might.
sister is a huge fan of theirs.
Okay.
She just organized the concert for their by them for their shul.
Great. Yeah. So those I think are my two additional announcements. And also the if you haven't taken advantage of the Scholar Stream programs through the conservative movement, they happen on Tuesday evenings at 8 and Wednesday evenings at 10 because it's happening on the West Coast. Though the lectures have been not, one was a little less than sparkling, but they've been very, very interesting. And even if you weren't able to see them, if you sign up, you get to sign up for free, and then you can watch that. You'll get access to them and watch. You can watch them on the on YouTube or something like that. So I strongly recommend those programs as well. Very nice programs from JTS and from the Ziegler School. All right, I think that's it. Anyone else with an announcement? Nope. Okay, let's do Adon Olam. I won't put it up on the screen. So forget what page it's on, but find it soon. There it is, page 211.
What happened to Ein Eloheinu?
What?
What happened to Ein Eloheinu?
Oh, you want to sing it? I just omitted it for the sake of getting.
Sometimes when we're running late.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, Sherry has a tough time letting go of Ein Eloheinu.
You can sing Ein Eloheinu instead of Adon Olam if you want.
It's okay.
It's okay.
Okay, it's all right.
All right. Adon Olam, B'terem kol yitzir nivra, lihet nasa b'chefetzo kol, azai melech shemo nikra, azai melech shemo nikra, v'yacharei kechlot hakol levado, yimloch nohra v'hu haya, v'hu veh, v'hu yichye b'hifara, v'hu yichye b'tifara, v'hu אחד ואין שני להמשילו, להכבירם, בלי ראשית, בלי תכלית, ולא העוז והמסחרה, ולא העוז והמסחרה, והוא אלי, וחי גואלי, וצורכב לי, בעת צרה, והוא ניסי ומנוס לי, מנת כוסי ביום מקרם, מנת כוסי ביום מקרא בידו, הפקיד רוחי בעת אישן ואיכרם, ואם רוחי גבייתי, אדוני לי ולא ירם, אדוני לי ולא ירם. Shabbat Shalom. Please feel free to.
Shabbat
Shabbat shalom, everybody.
Everybody.
Good
Shabbat shalom, everyone.
Shabbat
shalom.
See everybody. Hello, Francine. We just caught you. But nice to have you with us.
Hi, Jim.
Everybody.
Is Alana still in Israel, Mark?
I've been looking for her. She's not here. She must still be there.
She could be here.
You know, I wouldn't put it past her. She may be here for the last week and not telling me.
Like that.
Jim?
Yeah, go ahead, Mark.
Enjoy the beautiful day, everybody.
Right. Bye, everybody.
Yeah, right.
Lovely weather.
Jim?
Yeah, go ahead, Marty.
Not great weather.
This is a question for you and whoever else is like, I was, as we went through today's Parsha and thinking of several in the last few weeks, this is a backbencher's question. Does anyone ever discuss the tempo or the rhythm of the Torah? You know, the departure from Egypt, this story, they're always rushing, you know. I read it as because the world is against them. The other people have the promised land they want it. Has there ever been discussions of the tempo and the rhythm of the Torah?
You can look at Robert Alter has two books about the composition of the Bible, The Art of Biblical Narrative and the Art of Biblical Poetry. He has a lot to say about the language, and also in his luminous commentary to the Bible, there's a lot that he says about these sorts of things. But the Bible, yes, it tends to be very, you know, in so it's always very noticeable and worth noting when the Bible begins to get wordy, when there's more words than you'd expect. But the sort of baseline, I think, is that it goes through things quite quickly, and often just sort of leaves little hints.
And what's the explanation of that? Because they face a tough world. They're a small minority. They're creating a religion. They're creating a nation, a physical space for themselves.
I mean, I'm not sure that I'm entirely catching the connection between the pace of the narrative and the situation of the Israelites. But I'm not sure that those two things are necessarily connected. Although
no, I'm not saying they are, but I'm just saying, is that one explanation? Have people talked about that?
I mean, I don't. I mean, I'll open the floor on that one. Nothing is coming to my mind about a connection between those two things, but maybe someone has read something that I have.
The style of the biblical narrative, where a story is told in few words, leaving a lot of room for interpretation, is in itself a characteristic of the Torah that has, I don't think, anything to do with whether the Israelites were in a hurry or not. But it's just a different style. Erich Auerbach has a famous chapter in the book Mimesis where he compares this to Homer, which is the exact opposite.
Thank you. I was also thinking of Auerbach, and that's worth reading also. That chapter on the differences. Go ahead, Harriet.
No, I was just waving.
Oh, you're just waving. Okay.
At everyone. Wishing them Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
Good Shabbos, Adina.
Good Shabbos.
I was interested in the element of tricksterism.
Yes.
And Jacob is such a trickster.
Right. Right. And it's interesting, right, that he is such a trickster, right? But he's really upset with sons for following in his footsteps. He seems to be the kind of that says, "Do as I say, not as I do."
Yeah. Yeah, but he led the way. He modeled it.
Yeah, exactly. Marty, did you want to say something else? I muted you because there was a lot of noise and I couldn't hear Jim. I can't unmute you. You have to unmute yourself.
There. Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
I was thinking, not because Jim Leffert had the floor, but on the other hand, I was thinking of a similar thing. I remember reading some early general description of Freud's cases, and they were described as case studies. They were described as short and brief, and say they may have been modeled or they're similar to Torah portions. And someone like Jim Leffert, a specialist on Freud, or any of you, has anyone else heard that comparison?
Maybe the Haftorah, but not the Torah. Sorry.
Thank you.
I could imagine it as being a function of the process of editing and compiling and debating before the text was finalized, that since the text is viewed as the word of God, if there's something that seems extraneous or something that might not have been included in varying manuscripts and there was no consensus about, it might have been omitted just for that reason.
I mean, and again, these are
a lot of respect for every word.
Right. Well, and given actual criticism, which you can, as with any other kind of criticism, should be taken with a grain of salt. But these are the final text of the Torah, is seen as a combination.
The depiction of Shimon in today's Torah portion is consistent with Shimon's behavior later on towards his brother Joseph, So there is some continuity between his behavior in this story. And also the Levites, I mean, they end up being a pretty violent group too, according to some of the stories that we read about what goes on in the desert.
Well, Pinchas gets it's definitely it's.
Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat
shalom.
Shabbat
shalom.
Jim, thank you very much.
See you tomorrow.
See you all soon.
Jim, thank you very much.
You're welcome, Marty.
Thank you, Jim.
Shabbos, everybody.
Good Shabbos, everyone. Bye-bye.